Don in London. Hello. My video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance. Excuse me, fluff in my mouth. Start again. It's February the 18th, 2013, and daylight is coming earlier, and night time is coming later. So the days are getting longer and spring is here. Anyway, addiction and stuff. Yes, powerless over my addictions. That's what I learned early on when I sort of came to the conclusion it was time to admit and accept I had a problem with alcohol. And then I found it wasn't just alcohol. The problem wasn't alcohol at all. It was me. Me and alcohol together were a very, very big problem, and it was killing me. So from convivial and joyful drinking, relaxing and happy, through to and enabling lots and lots of relationships which felt right at the time, I wasn't really very aware of me on my emotional and spiritual journey of life, which to me means living and coping in the moment of now, and feeling life as it is, emotional and spiritual, in the moment, emotionally aware of the impact of everything around me and what's going on in my head. So how did this revelation of admission and acceptance happen? Well, not invented here, because I still believed for a long, long time that drink was not the problem, and I wasn't a problem. But I was. I was dependent, codependent, and then completely addicted to a substance beyond my control, and I needed help, and that was it. Life could get no worse, I thought, at the time. It could get worse, I have to admit, now, looking back. But what saved me? Well, professionals tried me out and suggested, they didn't tell me, they suggested, why not try Alcoholics Anonymous, a fellowship of human beings trying to be human. Human beings trying to be human without drinking, not me. Well, that's what I felt, because I was still in denial about I could stop on my own and I could start on my own, and that truth has not gone away. I've stopped now for quite a long time, years, and now I don't want to start again under any circumstances. But I know I need help and support, so the Fellowship of AA provides that. Fortunately for you, I don't speak for AA, and if you are in AA you know this. I don't speak for you, never can, never will, because I can't. It's a fellowship of equals, and there are no leaders in the fellowship. We have some suggestions and principles for living in an open, honest way without alcohol, which makes it much easier if you don't drink. And life is not only tolerable, it can be very enjoyable. Even when it's tough, it can be very enjoyable, like it used to be before the addiction struck us down. So I'm very lucky. I'm very, very lucky indeed. And I share the AA preamble here, so it slows me down and helps me put focus into what I want to share. So I put my own words together these days, and there are many literature books available. I haven't written one, so this is not an advert. It's just how it is today. So the preamble of Alcoholics Anonymous, shared at every meeting, is this. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. That's it, helping each other. Common problem. Only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. So many of us who get to the open doors of meetings, which are all around the world these days, is a desire to stop. And I was very uncertain about having a desire to stop, because I was bonkers and insane and had no clue how to live life anymore. So I accepted over and over again, no matter what I did, I could not stop drinking on my own, because life felt so bad, all empty and desolate and black. So that's it, a desire to stop. There are no dues or fees for AA. We are self-supporting through our own contributions, which means if we have a few pennies to spare, which I didn't, but I still gave them over, because I felt less than if I didn't. So these days, if I haven't got any money, I don't fear what people might think of me if I don't try and contribute. They know times are tough. So those are a few pennies to spare for rent, and all the other little bits and pieces that go on, we chip in. So it's not reliant on one person, it's reliant on everyone in fellowship. So we sort of work it out as we go, and we never have hoards of money. We don't need it, we only need enough for one day, ultimately one day, but we try to keep a prudent reserve if we can, and some meetings don't. We just get by. So, no fees or dues, it's free. Oh, that's good. And then AA itself is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. The good news is, though, you can belong to anything you like, get your freedom back, choose what you like is right for you, learn out what is the can do, cannot do, and keep on learning the wisdom to know the difference. That's how it works. So you are a free person with all your opinions, ideas, causes. Wherever you belong, you belong. AA is there for this. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So don't blame the messenger, is what I say. Nor me either. It's just one voice in recovery here, me. And you need the many voices of recovery to make sense of your own situation. That's what I did. I didn't go there and hear my story from one person. I heard my story collectively from everyone, day after day. A little bit of a chink of light about how to be sober, bearing in mind where I got to and what I was trying to achieve, which is if I'm sober, I'm ready for the rest of life. And then there are 12 steps to help me. Step 1 I've covered in January, powerless over alcohol, and life gets unmanageable if I were to drink again. Step 2, which I'm covering this month, February, is came to believe that a higher power would restore me to sanity. Well, I have to say that there is a higher power than me, and you are part of it, because the higher power for me is how God works through people, if there is a God, and God is truth and love. Truth, love and wisdom, the combined experience of the years of everybody on the planet, and all the experiences which went before as well. That's why people write books, share their experience, strength and hope, or make stories up, so they entertain. Anyway, my thoughts and feelings today so far. I do this daily reflection to share it, because part of sharing helps me understand where I'm coming from on a daily basis, and where other people are coming from on a daily basis. So we are as the best we can be in the moment of now is really what happens ultimately, even when we're horrible to each other. So, and yes, truth and reconciliation. Step 2, sanity. Truth and reconciliation. Open to the truth of what happened and where we are today. The 12 steps, principles of living, straightening out how we see ourselves today, and dealing with the history of our killer malady and what it did to us, or what we did to ourselves under the influence of alcohol. It has been said that truth is the first casualty in war. Churchill quoted that, or made it up, I don't know. Truth is the first casualty in war, and when we are at war with ourselves over our behaviour, our attitudes and our addictions, we are at war. So truth suffers immediately. We're in denial often of what we're trying to do to fix ourselves so we can cope, and then we find we can't cope if we're an addict to whatever it is. We can't cope, and we go back to that thing which takes away the pain, even if it's only temporary. So it's not easy. Yes, it has been said that truth is the first casualty in war. Being restored to sanity and understanding the truth of where addiction took us, it can take us years to be reconciled with what happened and how we are today. It is never easy to accept the truth we find in our own personal history, which highlights where our lives were taken over by a dependency on a substance because of what happened with people and places in the past. Family told me just how difficult I found family life growing up. And when I look back, I can see it now, but at the time, and when I was drinking, I thought, well, I just shrugged it off. But actually, I did find it very tough growing up. And even today, I feel disloyal when I share just how difficult life was, and the wrong turnings made from an early age, misguided by my father, who had an even more difficult childhood than mine. Even though I might have been misguided and influenced into unhelpful endeavours, everyone was doing the best they could with what they had and the experience of life over the years. Truth and reconciliation, when we're sober, this is about knowing why things happened, accepting and learning about the journey, and that recovery is about being restored to sanity in the moment of now. Still, things will drive us mad, because they will. That's life. But, or because of, with the 12 steps and principles of living, once they're in your head, when a life experience happens, these steps step in, and we find a better way to get on. Yeah, with the 12 steps and traditions of living, sanity is possible. Even under the most extreme circumstances, we can cope with life today. And if we cannot, we know it's okay to ask for help. So the whole part of fellowship, which works on a daily basis, is asking for help. And sometimes 1 in 10 people can answer, or sometimes if you're in a meeting you get so many answers you don't know what to do with them, because people might be overly helpful. It happened to me as well, is what they will say, because that's what we say. I feel it, but I know I can't feel it quite the way you do right now, because it's happening to you right now. I learned in my very early years the power of alcohol over me and my feelings. I was very, very young when I took my first drink. Actually, it was my granddad who fed it to me. And now I realise why I was ill because of it. And I liked it at the same time. It made me feel warm, fuzzy and accepting and quite tired. I was only about 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 when this stuff was going on. As the world spun around, there was no fear when I took that first drink. Yeah. A joyful release from fearful moments. And I can remember a TV series called No Hiding Place. When I was growing up, there was no hiding place or safe place, except in the crazy days of summer, off school for weeks on end, where I would disappear into the countryside, make a den and hide out from dawn to dusk. So I'd be out in the fields and making dens, digging holes, making caves, any sort of minor engineering projects, and building tree houses as well. I loved it. And I'd be gone, you know, the peacefulness and silence. Yeah, hide out from dawn to dusk. The sounds of nature, no arguments and no pressures, which happened a lot in family. Because my dad was difficult. He was a difficult customer. He was an old rogue in the end. And then drink. I was very good at home brewing, and was taught very early about the benefits of oblivion, because I saw it in my dad. And it made him happy, it made him angry, it made something come out of him which was not predictable. I think they were called emotions, but I couldn't recognise one from the other except for fear. It was not an overt recognition, it was a gentle slide. Oh yeah, homebrewing, and was taught very early about the benefits of oblivion. It was not an overt recognition in the early days, because I was just following on. It was a gentle slide into dependency on a substance, the unwitting development of addiction. So if I'd known back then, would I drink if I knew I was going to become an alcoholic? I wouldn't even have thought about it. I would have dismissed it as something which happens to other people, because it wouldn't happen to me. Hindsight is really useful to understand why things happen, and long after my father died, it was very apparent that he had always had a troubled life, solitary and lonely, and always a drink in hand in his adult years. So much lost, never to be recovered by him, and that was a tragedy, because he had no way of reconciling what happened, and what happened to him, and being married and having children, being a dad. He didn't really know how, and he never learned much of anything about it. He was always the breadwinner. That was his job, I think he felt. And sometimes he was very good at it, and sometimes it was dreadful to the point of scarring people for life and making us so fearful in so many ways. Anyway, and then as he taught me how to drink and how to cover up feelings and the desperation of trying to make it in life, a life full of fear passed on to me. And now that fear has gone in recovery, I would like to look back and blame, that's what I thought I could do, and make it the fault of other people about my drinking, but I cannot. It has no real value to blame anyone or anything for what happened, about anything. Blame gets me nowhere. Simply understanding the why and the how makes it possible to forgive myself for my part in it, and everyone for whatever part we all played in trying to do the best we could with what we had back in the day. And we do make big blunders and cover them up. Big blunders in our emotional and spiritual living in the moment where feelings work. I used to suppress my feelings because alcohol helped me deal with heartbreak. And every time I fell in love with a girl, I had heartbreak ahead of me. I was very good at heartbreak and drinking on it. Too many times. Anyway, I don't know why the notion of truth and reconciliation came up this morning, other than seeing and listening to the news and the tragic stories that abound about lives cut short and lives disrupted because truth was missing. Blame abounding and the root cause lost in grief and horror. The root cause lost in grief and horror, which is dealing and coping with the horror of what happened to many of us over the years and what we did about it. We covered it up to the point where we had a mountain full of crap emotionally, which we just didn't know what to deal with. No wonder we drank. Being restored to sanity on a daily basis has helped me reconcile the past, the part I played in all of that, and understanding how the best intentions could lead to the most destructive behaviour of all, self-harm and a killer malady dogging me and my every move before I got sober and started to see the truth and wisdom of the years. So not all is lost. I mean, for whatever reason I was quite successful in a lot of things. Sorry. Better. There was a lot of good over the years, and I don't want to lose sight of the fact that there was a lot of success, but I really didn't know how to enjoy it. And if I had learned how to enjoy less success as a measure of me, and using money as a measure of me, I'd have been a lot happier. But I was driven by wanting to fit in, and when anyone said, "Can you do this job?" even if I didn't know how to do it, I said, "Yes, I'll have a go." And it took me on sort of winding careers to the top of one profession, leaving it, starting another profession, leaving it, starting another profession, and eventually burning out because I was just so blinking tired and exhausted, sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I had a nervous breakdown. And I was lucky. A doctor understood enough to be kind and stop me from killing myself, really. That's the first inkling that life fundamentally had broken down in all departments. It wasn't very nice. And then an anxiety state for 2 years, trying to prove and demonstrate I was the person I used to be. I was gone, pretty sober through these years, but eventually drink got to me. I didn't drink at all for a long time, over a year. Must have been over a year, but it was always there in the background. I stayed away from it because I was just so blinking depressed, and then I couldn't see a way out. So what did I do? I went back to self-medication. Anyway, and then the journey continues into the darkest and dark of rock bottoms. Learning that it's okay to be powerless over alcohol and powerless over some behaviour and actions around people, places and things in the past was traumatic at first, and then became an understanding within me that it was okay to admit and accept how life was and how different it is sober today. Powerlessness over the alcohol and no need to try control and be powerful over people, places and things. In other words, don't feel I have the power or the right or the expectation or the entitlement to try and control you, because I don't. Or it was a mistake that I could corral, encourage, influence in a good way when I was in a very bad state of mind. Not good. The emotional and spiritual journey, living in the moment, has helped me let go the fears, the need to put on a brave face and cover up, fearing, putting on a brave face, covering up, stiff upper lip because I'm British. That's what the British do. Actually, if we didn't do that, it'd be a lot better. And then, rather than have a big breakdown, having made a mountain full of crap to deal with, if we have a mini breakdown on our feelings and share them, we deal with it in the moment of now, and then we move on clean in a way of that trauma, or we keep on working it out gently as best we can, with help, hopefully. The emotional and spiritual journey, so no longer needing to put on a brave face, cover up, and no need of ego to bolster myself if I were to feel inadequate in some way. And the march of time changes what we can and cannot do physically, emotionally. Physically, sometimes we diminish in some departments, which is very unfortunate in my case. But emotionally, we learn to cope with life a lot better sober. So, it's okay to live in the moment, have the courage to change and learn to ask for help. Have faith in the next right thing, which I need do, and have the confidence to live the truth of now, so I may learn from living the truth in the moment of now, and it is okay just for today. It is about now, and part of the 12-step process, step 4, which I'll talk about more, the self-appraisal of what happened, the good, bad and the ugly of it, is a good way of describing it. Keep a notion of what was good about us. We learned a lot through all those days. Then there's the bad and the ugly, and our part in it. What did we do? And our part in it, the bad things that happened. And soonest, having a go, we'll start the process of how these principles work in reality, living the steps. Truth and reconciliation. Learning to grieve for the person that I had become. That was the burnt out case, rock bottom, not sure what to do next person, living in oblivion, chronic depression, and the world was black. So I needed to learn to grieve for the person I had become. The 5 stages of grief described by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who thought she was going to die, then went into remission, and then eventually, obviously, nature took its course. But she came up with the 5 stages of grief, which starts with in relation to people dying, and it's also in relation to leaving a life and starting a new life. It's grieving the horror and the good, coming up to the cherishing bit. So for her, as she described it, denial, I can't believe it, anger, rage often, because we don't understand rage until we're in it, and we don't understand rage until we've got an understanding of our feelings. Frustration, depression, and then acceptance. And it's like denial pushes up our self-esteem to start with. So I can't believe it's happening to me, how dare it happen to me, and all of that. Then the anger, frustration of not being able to change the truth. So not being able to change the truth of my addictions, people, places and things, and substance, trying to be perfect and never so. So grieving the loss of that idea of me. And the reality was, I was broken-hearted in a black, desolate place. So that's from denial to anger, frustration, and then depression, and then coming through to acceptance. And then acceptance, all part of learning to live a new life. Kubler-Ross was instrumental in helping me learn how to cherish all that was good in my life on the way to recovery. And I was very lucky, because in the professions where I was still learning, part of it was coaching, counselling and exploring all the different ways that people can find help to unravel the knots in their head. So I had a fairly eclectic education just after my dad died back in 1991, which helped me understand the grieving process, and at the same, all going on together, death, end of a relationship, moving house, new job, all those things intermingled with trying to make me feel better with people, places and things, girlfriends who I didn't know how to love when I was in that state. I was just desperate for company, and I was lonely. And then I was lonely to the point where I couldn't bear to be with people. So all that happened, and alcohol suppressed and kept my feelings in check. The feelings I didn't like, which hurt me deeply. And with alcohol coming into recovery, the deep hurts then surfaced after decades of being in storage. So all my feelings started to come out, they erupted. So I would react in an extreme way to reality. And then step 2 came to believe that a power greater than me could restore me to sanity. And I put a question mark there. How could I come to believe that something bigger than me would restore me to sanity? And did I have to believe in God? Well, the answer is no. You believe in what you believe. That's most important. But the higher power for me was obvious. It was the experience, strength and hope shared in meetings. It wasn't obvious to the point where I would accept it. It was obvious that they knew better than me, and everybody who was happy-clappy, I liked some of that, but it wasn't going to happen straight away, because all this rubbish going around in my head and not wanting to drink, I was in a mess. So came to believe a power greater than me could restore me to sanity, yes. Listening to my story told over and over again as people shared their experience, strength and hope in the fellowship. So I found kindred spirits who were without the spirit, the hard spirit, so alcohol, or beer, or wine, or whatever you can make into something to fix something, namely my feelings, which I couldn't deal with. So comparatively, and in a judgmental way, I could see that my suffering was no different to when anybody else came in, and not more profound than anybody else. The journey into rock bottom and the journey out of rock bottom needs to be done with truth, love and wisdom. So truth, love and wisdom and how to came out of meetings of AA. And really listening rather than judging and saying, oh well, it's obvious that why he drank, he was worse than me, or it's obvious that they had nothing, this and that and it didn't have it. But you know, I had to look at me. They were sober and I was still mad as a hatter, not drinking and shaking. So truth, love and wisdom, that's what came through for me. Higher power. And Gandhi, hearing him on a recording saying God is truth, God is love, and it manifests right now. The truth of feelings in the moment of now are possible and make life work. And if we don't have a storage unit full of old crap, or we've dealt with it through the self-appraisal and started the amends process to ourselves and other people, we start to understand our part in life, and we hit equality if we're lucky. And it does take more than a day to find acceptance, cherishing the good and letting go all that was superficial and indifferent in me. It's skating over the surface, covering up the cracks and all of that. Forgiveness is key in sobriety. Forgiveness. Starting with oneself and then forgiving everyone, everything. They were doing the best they could with what they had back in the day. They were. And my final paragraph, which is quite long this morning, you need to suck it up and get on with it. It's an American term which seems to pervade television at the moment. Suck it up and get on with it. You need to suck it up and get on. You can do this, but if you do, you are not dealing with your emotional and spiritual well-being. Or in other words, you're building up another storage tank full of entitlement. Well, I'll say what I say here. If we do suck things up and suppress them in order to move on, we do put our feelings into storage, usually hurtful feelings, and also feelings of unrequited love often. So if you're a single person or you're in a rough relationship and you're not happy in it, the mind wanders to whoever we are attracted to on a daily basis, so we can find ourselves with lots of feelings we're not dealing with, either because we can't or it's inappropriate. Some feelings about other people are inappropriate, and yet we still need to deal with them. But if we do set things up and suppress them in order to move on, we do put our feelings in storage, usually hurtful feelings and the feelings of unrequited love quite often. I prefer not to put things into storage these days, not to suck up anything, because it's like a vacuum cleaner. If your vacuum cleaner is full of crap in your head, what are you going to do with it? Store it or let it go in some way? So not to suck up anything which suppresses the truth of my emotions, my feelings in the moment of now. When I do this, when I'm honest with myself, I know that subconsciously and most often consciously these days I will find myself going, oh, if I put it away it will come back at me, and I'll start, why did I have to suck it up? Why am I doing this? How dare they make me? Actually, it's me who's making me do it, and it's making me who's sucking it up. Bollocks, I'm not doing it, or trying not to. Yeah. And then I go over the same ground again and again in my head. Acknowledging our feelings about a situation is good. Then thinking, why am I doing what I'm doing? And it's really important, because every action which follows when under pressure and against my free choice will undermine my serenity all day long. It is better to work it out, what I can do and what I cannot do, and keep on learning the wisdom to know the difference. And yes, sometimes I guess I do suck it up and get on with it, because I know by the end of the day the 12-step principles, the 12 steps, will help me, especially step 10, the spot check personal inventory. How am I feeling? Why? What can I do? What's my part in it? Why am I feeling this? Angry, resentful, or whatever. It's going to help me, and I can discuss it with another human being. Usually, and hopefully, with the person who started it all off in the first place, or at least get some help on how to. It will help me find the truth and reconcile my feelings today. That's step 10. Spot check any time of day or at night time. I don't need a hiding place. I need fellowship, and then truth, love and wisdom will come my way, moment by moment, and gratitude is all part of the equation just for today. And I've got last year's as well there, but they're on the blog. So, truth and reconciliation for a human being. When we've gone through trauma, we have post-traumatic stress disorder to varying degrees. Very obvious in people who've been in war. Truth being the first casualty, because it's sucked up and put away, and then it causes stress disorders. And of course people don't want to admit that, especially when people have been made to go to war and it's your duty and all of that. I'd prefer people led from the front when it came to these encounters, because the leadership where somebody pushes a button or says go and other people go and they sit at the back is a risk assessment on how many people need to die to get our own way. And when we are at war with ourselves, truth is the first casualty, because denial comes first to bolster our self-esteem, and then the anger, rage, frustration, depression, and somehow finding the good in all of this, in acceptance, so we cherish what we've learned from it and let go of the superficial and indifference that may have forced us to behave the way we behaved. If we didn't know better, why were we doing it? Often because we were sucking it up, alcohol, and covering up our feelings and emotions. So rather than have another gigantic breakdown, I have mini breakdowns on a daily basis where, well, I don't. I haven't had any for a while, actually. I did have a bit of a crisis a few weeks back, but that was trying to emulate the old life. Emulate it. Why? It's not good for me. So I'm human. I am very human. Getting into recovery is to be a human being with feelings, things we don't understand and things we do, can do, can't do, wisdom to know the difference. This serenity prayer, a restoration back to peace, serenity, whatever it might be, or to have the serenity and have to cope with difficult things, very difficult things, life itself, life and death. So in all weathers, whether you believe in God or not is not. It doesn't matter. Can do, can't do, wisdom to know the difference. Say yes to what you can do, no to what you can't do. Again, Gandhi said an emphatic no is better than a half-hearted yes. So an emphatic no is better than a half-hearted yes sometimes. We don't have to justify sometimes. If something feels wrong, say I feel wrong about this and I must say no to it. So don't suck it up if you can avoid it. Avoid it. Don't suck it up is better than adding to the storage unit of a mountain of crap that can accumulate if we don't deal with life on life's terms. Live reality. It's all spiritual and emotional. Very emotional, because it's nice to have deep feelings and learn how to cherish people and love them and not be superficial and indifferent to them. Most important. To God, or in good conscience, whatever it is that is your higher power, please let it work for you. Truth, love and wisdom in fellowship is my higher power, and the truth, love and wisdom from family, community and people who are just there with wisdom. Help me on this. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. In the moment, minute, hour, and just for today.